Hello, and welcome to the Lyman Lipke Guitarcast. I'm your host, Lyman Lipke. Housekeeping. Join my not-so-secret guitar club. I've been threatening to send out the first email. I will get to that this week, I promise. Lessons available. Subscribe on YouTube and follow on Spotify for this podcast and other things. And one more piece of housekeeping. I was featured on a song that was released last week by an artist called Heem, and the track is called Divinity. Real cool song, and he made it in FL Studio, which I am an FL Studio user as well, so it's nice to connect. And that's the perfect segue into one of the topics of this podcast. Mistakes. And I made a big one. Because today, Heem was supposed to be on the podcast. We recorded an episode. Except I did not record his audio. And that's my beat. So, I'm here doing a makeup episode. And hopefully we can get him on the show next week, because we had a great conversation, and I hope to have him on more often. But we all make mistakes, especially as musicians. I don't know if there's a show I've ever played without a mistake. And Oscar Peterson said something to the same effect. Like, there's like every show, every time he performs, there's a mistake. And I think as we get better, the mistakes start becoming more and more minimal. Like, I don't know if I've ever heard an Oscar Peterson mistake, but in his mind, a mistake is a lot different than a mistake in my mind. So we're all going to make mistakes. What the important thing is in music is the recovery. Can you recover from a mistake? Can you not let the audience know that you just missed something, unless you missed something like, huge? I've made some large blunders on stage before. But if it's a small little mistake, don't let the audience see you sweat. Don't make a face, except maybe, turn around, make a face to your bandmates. I do that. But get back to the music as quickly as possible. Like, that's almost more valuable than minimizing mistakes, which we should always be trying to do, because that's what we practice for. We practice to get as close to perfection as possible. Even though perfection is probably something that we will never hit. Maybe we'll hit perfection, but recovery of mistakes is very important. And he was a cool dude. He wasn't too upset about my blunder, so hopefully he'll be on the show next week. I had a band director in community college who said, "I will never get upset at you for making a mistake in rehearsal if you play confidently. If you're timid and try to fumble through the part you don't know, and then we have a conversation." But that's something that stuck with me. Like, just play with confidence at all times. And I think there's some psychology behind that. If you play big and make a mistake big, that's going to stick with you a lot more than if you're playing timidly and just sort of skate past the hard part. If you make a big mistake, that's something in your head that's going to stick out at you, and you're probably going to go home if you know if you're a musician worth your salt and practice that part. Make sure you don't make that big mistake again. Like don't make the same mistake twice. Like if I'm a band leader, like you can make the same mistake twice. Like I'm not gonna get mad at the first mistake. I ain't even gonna sweat the second mistake. The third, if you make the same mistake 3 times, I might lose my mind. Just don't make the same mistake multiple times in a row. That's the crux of it. There's this Wild Giants track called "Close to Me" that. and I made a mistake like that on stage, and it was when the rest of the band drops out. It's just this 2 bars, and I've put we've put a new spin on that break. And I Weezer everybody in the crowd. And you just got Weezered, so that's funny. I've forgotten the line, which is funny. So I made a big mistake, went home, learned it, and didn't make that mistake again. And I always take special care, like before a gig, if that's on the set. To go over that part, so I don't screw that up again. But I hit a big stinker on that. And Austin asked me, "Feel okay about tonight?" I'm like, "Yeah," because I mean, it happened. I got back into the song, and I knew what I needed to do. I do not beat myself up too hard over a mistake like that, especially at a bar show where there's 7 people there. Like, I'm not gonna beat myself up for that. I'm just gonna try to do better next time. If I did that in an audition, I might beat myself up over that. But I don't like auditions, man. Like, if a band wants me to audition and they've got no gigs on the books, like I'm not gonna do that. Like, if I need to audition for a band, the workload of the band has to be significant. Like, yeah, I got a lot of anxiety around stuff like that. So, like, if a band is gonna make me audition, I'm going to, probably not do that unless it's gonna be a significant career move. Like, if if I'm joining a band, like usually, it's they're people that I know, and they know what I am capable of, and they know what I can do, and so like they'll either give me the slot or I'll come in and sub. Like I've done a lot of sub work in my life, and it's very rarely when I'm doing a sub gig do I get a book. I wish I would get more books. Like, what I mean by a book is a book with charts in it, chord changes, sometimes sheets, like lead sheets, or even sheets with parts on it. If I get a book with parts in it, like bass parts or guitar parts, I'm sitting pretty. Like, I am very happy about that because while I'm not, the world's greatest sight reader, I can, usually, excuse me, I'll get the I'll get to the gig early, and I'll get some time to look at the book and look at anything that's too terribly difficult. Make a note of that, and it'll be fine. It is a luxury to show up to a gig and have the boss like just hand you a book. And even more of a luxury if they send you a PDF of the book beforehand. Like, it's so easy if you know how to read. I do not get that luxury most of the time. I'm lucky to get a set list. And sometimes I'm lucky to get a set list with artists on it. I got sent a set list, 40 songs to learn in 2 days. And there were a couple songs where I was just... the titles were Dreams and Physical. So my first... where my brain went first was Cranberries, because I've played Cranberries songs with this singer before, and Olivia Newton-John, because that was, let's get physical, ethical. I don't know, but it turns out it was Fleetwood Mac and Dua Lipa. Fleetwood Mac Dreams is fine. It's 2 chords, except for the little guitar solo. Then there's a third chord that happens once. But I had no idea what the Dua Lipa song was. So in my little one-sheet prep doc, I had Olivia Newton-John Physical written in. And that was not what I was supposed to have. So... yeah, if you're a band leader, make a book. That way, like, if a bass player or a guitar player decides to go off the rails, lose their dang mind, which I've seen happen so many times, we've been on the receiving end of it. You don't have to worry about finding somebody who knows we gotta find somebody who knows all the songs, knows all these songs. You got a book, you find anybody who can read, and then you just you can rotate the musicians out, like, and a lot of times you like. I hesitate to use the term standards for this kind of stuff, like pop top 40 rock standards. 'Cause standards to me are like Stella by Starlight and Take the A Train, not Creep by Radiohead or Zombie by the Cranberries. But like a lot of guys will know most of the songs. You can put together a list that will suffice out of stuff that everybody knows. But if you have a book that takes away a lot of the guesswork. So yeah, I don't really to back it up. I don't really audition. It gives me too much anxiety. I think I've auditioned for one band in the last 10 years, and it wasn't the greatest experience for me. Maybe I'll tell that story another day. But every gig I've ever gotten came from somebody I knew, somebody that I made a connection with. So it's all about the people, like making a good impression with your playing and with how you are as a person. If you can do that when you show up to a gig, especially a sub gig, if you leave a good impression on them, you'll get called again for some more sub work. Or maybe they'll pass your number along to somebody else who needs a sub. And that's how I've gotten every single gig I've ever gotten. Except maybe the the first gig I ever played in 2007, I got a referral from a friend. I was, what was I? About to turn 16, and we played 2 hours of just cover songs. Uh, and I met some people there, and they told me, "Hey, you should do this thing, this jazz camp next year." I did that, made friends, started playing on the street with a saxophone player, and that introduced me to way more people, and I, started to get gigs from there. Got my number passed around, uh, and got linked up into the local community. So they say luck is preparation plus opportunity. So prepare, and when you get the opportunity, show up. Like, do your absolute best, leave a good impression. And yeah, every gig I've ever gotten, except the first, even the first one. When I moved to Arizona, like, then I knew zero people. I knew zero people. But I knew my wife's boss, who knew a local band, and we all went out to see this local band, and I met the drummer, who kind of, big timed me a little bit. It's like, you're some rando. I know what I'm doing. I'm like, all right. They wouldn't let me sit in, which I'm like, yeah, that's fine. I ain't trying to sit in, but I met somebody, and then, like, I got the drummer's number. We started texting. He, was big timing me a little bit. He's like, I'm pretty busy. Like, I don't know if we'll get the opportunity to play together anytime soon. And then I sent him some recordings of a band that I played with in Washington, and all of a sudden his tune changed. Next week, you available next week? And very first gig I ever played with him, I met. Uh, it's so funny how stuff like this happens. The, like, baddest guitar player we call it the mountain. I was living in Snowflake, Arizona. There's a bunch of surrounding towns in the White Mountains of Arizona. So the baddest guitar player in Arizona happened to own a cleaning business, and happened to he happened to be cleaning a house right by the gig that I was doing. It was a jazz gig, and it was a weird situation. I was triggering bass tracks off my laptop that I recorded, and so every song was set. So maybe not really jazz, but very jazz adjacent. Like, we were playing standards, like they would be played in old times, except there was a bass part that happened the same way every time. He showed Guitar Man shows up and like introduces himself to me, and I saw him at Far Away, like, and of course, I did my research. Like, I knew who this guy was before we were introduced, because, like, I searched up all the musicians around, and I saw, well, this dude, like, can really play and really play jazz. And so I saw him Far Away, and then he walks up, and he gets bigger and bigger, and I realized this guy's, like, ginormous. He's like 6'6", huge guy. And he says something to the effect of, "You're my new favorite guitar player on this mountain." I'm like, whoa. And then we got to, talking. We got to playing together, and through him, I got connected with pretty much everyone that I knew on the mountain. My mountain connections brought me Phoenix connections, and it got me connected with some people in Phoenix. So it really is all about the people. Like, make friends with people and leave a good impression. And you can do that with your music and with your, just generally being a good person. That's my spiel. So, the guitar I've got today. I've got the Ibanez Talman Artcore TM71. It's a little bit different. I've got my own pickups in here. I wound these pickups. And I think they're mostly original. Like, I might have swapped the covers and different bobbins in this one. But besides the wire magnets, like, mostly original. And the pickups in this guitar at first were terrible. They were awful. Mud machines. And like, this sounds great for jazz. That's the middle position. And I love what you can do with the two volumes to get different sounds. And then the bridge. And I've been pretty busy as of late, driving all over the state of Arizona, doing shows, doing lessons, making these videos. And last week, I finally started to reclaim some of my time. And instead of relaxing, like recharging, well, maybe I, did a little bit of relaxing. This is how I relax. I spent the week in my workshop. So now I've got 3 double humbucker guitars with my pickups in them. I've got the Ibanez Geo, these pickups that I wound. The steel slugs were a little bit too long, so I pulled them out and ground them down, put them back in, so now they're regular sized. And I've also got the Jackson 7-string, which has been out of commission for a while, but is back in commission. And 24 fret, rewound the humbuckers. And both of those guitars, the Ibanez Geo and this guitar, have my 5-way switch. So, humbucker, top coil, both top coils, top coil bridge, and then humbucker. This one is just dual humbucker. I was thinking about putting a 5-way in, but I thought better of that. And I also have the unnamed 7-string, and there's a little bit something a little bit different on here. I screwed something up with it. I've got the switch here that turns it from single coil to humbucker, and I didn't use the proper length of wire, so I had to drill a new hole to get this switch, or this potentiometer here. And this is actually the first successful pickup that I wound. Turns out I thought it was unsuccessful. It was fine, I was just missing something. Like I needed to connect the end wires properly, and then I did that on the Switch. So, but it's got bad 60 cycle hum when I'm not touching it. So I just put some copper shielding tape where I usually put my arm. No, I don't get the 60 cycle hum. Grounds the guitar, like how I hold it naturally. If I need to do that on this guitar, I would put it right here and just connect it to ground. Just copper tape. Could that electrocute me? I don't think so. Could it shock me? Probably. There's a difference between shocking and electrocuting. You can only get electrocuted once. Because electrocution implies heart no longer beating. So you can get shocked many, many times. You can only get electrocuted once. I don't think that guitar can electrocute me, but it could very well shock me. I don't know. We'll figure it out. One thing I wanted to talk about real quick. Then we'll probably, actually two things I wanted to talk about. I've been listening to an artist who was real big in the early 2000s, and then kind of faded away. But I want to see if any of you can figure out where the song is from or who did it. And here's the... that artist, and I just dropped my ears, so now I can't hear anything. There we go. I can hear again. That artist had a huge hit, and then one more greater hit. But if you like to party in the early 2000s, you know who this guy was. But like that little guitar line he played, I didn't realize how much of like an effect that had on my, melodic concept. I've played that lick so many times, and which probably comes from somewhere else, but I, think of it like, oh, it's from that song, and things like. I get licks from weird places. That lick comes from, Donna Lee. I got it from the death screen in Super Mario Brothers 2 when it was released as Super Mario Brothers 2 in the US, otherwise known as Doki Doki Panic everywhere else in the world. And that video game has great music. I forget it, but it stole that from Super Mario Brothers 2. Jazz Enclosure. I got that from. Or, right here's chromatic scale. Bob on Battlefield. So it's always weird when people ask me, like, what are your influences? Like, it takes a lot of explaining that I really don't, care to do. Like, okay, so back in the 90s, there were these video games that I liked, and certain earworms, and I found out this goes to this. Too much. So I just say Joe Pass, Pat Martino, Jimmy Bruno, because those are my 3 favorite guitar players. But real quick before we end it, I wanted to talk about just general right hand technique. I have never been an anchorer where you hold your finger against the guitar body to give you more stability. And I don't know why I've always been an call it floating wrist, but one thing I noticed from Todd Johnson and floating thumb is you move the mechanism. It never changes. Your muscle memory stays the same. Same thing with floating wrist. I don't have to change the shape of my hand when I pluck on the low strings or the high strings. All the same shape. And this is a great little muting device. So my palm is muting the lower strings. It grinds my gears. I hear that, like the strings ringing out. So, like, if you're playing like this, you gotta get creative with the left hand to mute. But with this, I can, double mute. Mute with the left hand and the right hand. And so, floating wrist and economy picking, which basically, my definition of economy picking is anytime I change strings towards the floor, it's a downstroke. Anytime I change strings towards the ceiling, it's an upstroke. So, down, up, down, changing strings, down, up, down, changing strings, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. And so, like, anytime I'm playing an arpeggio like that, it turns into a sweep. And that's, just keeps my movement as minimal as possible. And, my fingers are always ready to go into hybrid picking, which is using the pick and the fingers. So floating wrist, economy picking, keeping everything relaxed. That's basically the crux of my right hand technique. Try to not think about it too much and not move so much. I think that's a show. So hopefully we'll get Heem on the podcast next week. If you're looking for guitar lessons, feel free to reach out. If you're listening on YouTube, please subscribe. If you're listening on Spotify, please follow on Spotify. Join my not-so-secret clubhouse. Got an exercise coming your way, and many exercises coming your way. And be on the lookout for group classes. They are going to start very soon. And if you stuck out to the end, I'll let you know about a free one. It's going to be a free group class at some point in the next few weeks, going over my 3-note per string major scale concept. And there'll be documentation to go along with that. So be on the lookout for that. Otherwise, thank you for listening to another episode of the Lyman Lipke Guitarcast. I've been your host, Lyman Lipke, and I will see you on Thursday for some question and answer